I'm Miles Jenner, and I'm head brewer and joint managing director of Harvey's. It's run by the Harvey family, the descendants of John Harvey. Well, he came down to Lewis at the beginning of the 19th century and traded as a wine and spirit merchant, and then went into brewing and started brewing on this site in 1838. So yeah, but his descendants still very much involved with the company, and Hamish Elder, who I'm joint MD with and is chairman of the company, and we have another generation coming along as well with in sales and marketing, and most recently in brewing. I have my godson, Hamish's son, has just trained at Edinburgh, done an engineering degree and is now doing a brewing degree. So there is a marvellous feeling that the family are actually involved in the process, because that is where the heart beats, I think, within a brewery. The little mash tun that we brew with week in, week out, we bought from Page & Overton's Brewery in Croydon in 1954 when they shut, and it had been made in 1926, so it's had coming up to a century of brewing, which is quite something. And then, you know, obviously we've replaced with plant throughout the decades and put in more modern plant and stainless steel, but we've always maintained the essential aspects of authentic brewing. So when we had to take out our brewing copper, which was getting very thin after over a century of brewing, I actually had a new copper fabricated in Scotland and brought down, because a lot of brewers in the 1960s, when stainless steel was in vogue, you know, ripped out all the copper plant, and the beer changed because it is essential trace element and is necessary for many yeasts, including ours. So yeah, it's important to keep heritage, not for the sake of being a museum, but just because you want authenticity. You want to create beer in the way that you've always done and ensure that there is that continuity.
Yeah.
But the story of the yeast is that in the 1950s we were brewing with yeast from a splendid company called the Burton Pure Yeast Company, and they would collect yeast from Burton brewers and would do a sort of round of the counties, delivering fresh yeast to small brewers such as Harvey's and others on a monthly basis. So you've got a change of yeast, but you've got a consistent yeast. And they decided that they were going to pack up and go out of business, and they said, well, we'll tell you where we got your yeast from and you can ask for it. Day came, my father Julie phoned up the brewery in question, and they said, yeah, fine, we'll let you have some. When it came down, it's totally different to anything that he'd ever sort of experienced, and he was frantic, and he couldn't get hold of the Burton Pure Yeast Company. They disappeared off the face of the earth with their little code book that kept all the various breweries intertwined. And he started sort of just looking for another yeast. And in those days, you know, yeasts were not the sort of intellectual property that they've become, you know. And so small brewers all around, Tamplin's, Kemp Town, Starborough, Eastbourne, would say, well, you know, try ours, see if it works with that. And they didn't, basically. And then he had a guy coming through Lewis on holiday who was a chemist, and he had asked if he could look round the brewery, and my father told him what was happening and said, you know, I really am a bit desperate because we've got to get a consistent yeast. And he said, well, why don't you try John Smith's in Tadcaster? He said a lot of brewers have used them and they found the yeast to be very good indeed. So my father phoned up, and they routed a consignment of yeast by passenger train from York to Lewis. He pitched it in and he never looked back, and that was in 1957. So 65 years of brewing with the yeast, and we don't culture it. It goes from one brew to the next. We literally skim it off, put it back into the next. Right. So we reckon over 3,000 generations of yeast have gone through the brewery in that time.
Wow.
And it's changed over the years. It's mutated slightly. It's gone from a single strain to two strains, but obviously the same DNA, and they sort of work together. And we know it well, and we safeguard it and keep an eye on it, because it is really the fingerprint on Harvey's beer. It is it's the most discernible character of any of our beers. People say, "Was that a Harvey beer?" Because you've got that yeast character. Combine that with the local water supply, combine it with the brewing methods that we use and plant, and you've got something that is a very authentic beer and has, survived the ages. Yeah, we're still on whole hops and traditional hop-back system, and I think if you want really good work quality, my personal preference is that. And we're buying from local hop growers, Sussex, Kent and Surrey, and we're buying traditional aroma hops, Fuggles, Goldings, Progress, Bramley Cross, and the bittering values on those is lower than some of the modern varieties, so we use a lot of them, and that's important because we need to create the bed of hops in our hop back after boiling to filter the sugars that we've boiled. And to me, that is one of the most authentic parts of brewing. There are very few brewers today where you go into the hop store and you see whole leaf hops and pockets open and bales, and it's largely been superseded by hop pellets, and nothing wrong with them. They produce perfectly good beer, but if you want something that is utterly authentic as a means of brewing, I don't think you can go far wrong than a traditional hop back system.